Captain Lee Hyun stood on the bridge of the UES horizon, watching the stars through the main viewing screen. The ship moved quietly through space, far from Earth and deeper into the unknown than any human had ever traveled before. This was humanity's first real journey to explore what lay beyond their home system. The bridge was calm and peaceful. Most of the crew worked at their stations, checking systems and monitoring the ship's path through the darkness. Lee Hyun had been captain for 3 years, but this mission felt different. They were truly alone out here, with no way to call for help if something went wrong. Lieutenant Park Mina sat at the communications station, her headphones on as she listened to the empty static of space. She had been doing this job for hours, hoping to catch any signal that might tell them they were not alone in the universe. Most of the time, she heard nothing but the natural sounds of stars and cosmic radiation. Then something changed. Park Mina straightened in her chair, her fingers moving quickly over her controls. She pressed her headphones closer to her ears and frowned. There was something in the static, something that did not belong. "Captain," she called out, her voice cutting through the quiet of the bridge. "I'm picking up something strange. It sounds like a transmission." Lee Hyun turned from the viewing screen and walked over to her station. "What kind of transmission?" "I'm not sure, sir. It's very weak and coming from far away. But it doesn't sound like any natural phenomenon I know." Park Mina's fingers danced over her controls, trying to clean up the signal. "It almost sounds like someone is trying to communicate." The captain felt his heart beat faster. If this was true, it would be the most important discovery in human history. "Can you make it clearer?" "I'm trying, sir. Give me a moment." Park Mina worked with intense focus, using every tool she had to filter out the noise and strengthen the signal. Slowly, very slowly, the static began to clear. What came through the speakers made everyone on the bridge stop what they were doing. It was definitely a voice, but not human. The sounds were musical, like someone singing a sad song. The rhythm rose and fell in patterns that seemed too organized to be natural. This was language, but unlike anything they had ever heard. "My God," whispered Dr. Kim Jae, the ship's language expert, as he rushed to the communications station. "This is incredible. We're actually receiving an alien transmission." Lee Hyun activated the ship's internal communications. "All senior staff to the bridge immediately. This is not a drill." Within minutes, the bridge filled with the ship's officers. Dr. Kim Jae had already begun working with the ship's computer to analyze the alien sounds. The artificial intelligence that helped run the ship was trying to find patterns in the strange, music-like language. "What do we know so far?" Lee Hyun asked. Dr. Kim Jae looked up from his work, his face pale with excitement and worry. "The signal is definitely artificial, sir. It's coming from a star system about 50 light-years from here. The computer is finding patterns that suggest this is indeed a language, but it's unlike anything in our databases. Can we understand what they're saying?" "Not yet, but we're making progress. The AI is starting to identify repeated phrases and emotional content. Captain, I think this might be a distress call." The bridge fell silent. The idea that humanity's first contact with alien life might be someone calling for help was both exciting and terrifying. Park Mina continued to work on strengthening the signal. As the hours passed, more of the transmission became clear. Dr. Kim Jae and the IB ship's computer slowly began to piece together the meaning of the alien words. "Captain," Dr. Kim Jae said finally, his voice shaking, "I think I understand part of the message. They're calling themselves the Villani, and they're in terrible trouble." Lee Hyun leaned forward. "What kind of trouble?" "They're being attacked by someone called the Krex Dominion. The Villani are asking for help from anyone who can hear their message. They say their people are being killed and they don't know how to fight back." The captain felt a chill run down his spine. "How long do they have?" Dr. Kim Jae listened to more of the transmission, his face growing darker. Not long, sir. They mentioned something about solar cycles, but I think they mean they only have days or weeks left. And where are they exactly? The signal is coming from a system they call Valanis Prime. It's about 50 light years away, but, Captain, Dr. Kim J. paused. They're not just asking for rescue, they're asking for someone to help evacuate their entire species. They say they have no weapons, no way to defend themselves. Lee Hyun stared at the viewing screen, thinking about the massive decision that lay before them. Humanity had only recently learned how to travel faster than light. They had never met aliens before, and now the first ones they encountered were asking for military help against an unknown enemy. "Send a message to Earth immediately," he ordered. "Tell them what we've found and ask for instructions. Use the emergency communication. Protocols." Park Mina nodded and began preparing the message that would travel back to Earth at faster-than-light speed. It would take several hours to reach home, and several more for a response to come back. As they waited, Dr. Kim J. continued to decode more of the Valani transmission. The picture that emerged was heartbreaking. The Valani described themselves as a peaceful people who had never developed weapons. They lived in harmony with their planet and with each other. They had no armies, no battleships, no way to fight against an enemy that seemed to exist only to destroy. The Krek's dominion, as far as the Valani could tell, was a group of species that conquered and destroyed other civilizations for no reason, except that they could. They had already wiped out dozens of peaceful worlds, and now they had come for the Valani. "Captain," Park Mina said quietly, "we're receiving a response from Earth." Lee Hyun straightened. "Put it through." The voice of Admiral Choi Sung came through the speakers, clear and strong despite the vast distance. "Captain Lee Hyun, you are to maintain your position and continue monitoring the situation. Do not, repeat, do not make contact with either alien species until we can send additional ships. The Earth Defense Council is meeting to decide how to respond." Lee Hyun knew that this was the right decision, but it felt wrong to just sit and listen while an entire species was being destroyed. "Understood, sir. How long until additional ships arrive?" "The earliest we can get a fleet to you is 2 weeks. Can the aliens hold out that long?" Dr. Kim J. looked up from his translation work, his face grim. "Based on what they're saying, sir, I don't think so. They're talking about final evacuations and last strongholds. I think they have days, not weeks." The bridge fell silent as everyone realized they might be listening to the final moments of an entire civilization. Somewhere, 50 light years away, people were dying, and humanity had to decide whether they were ready to step onto the galactic stage as protectors or remain hidden in the safety of their own solar system. Lee Hyun looked around at his crew, seeing the same conflict in their faces that he felt in his heart. They were explorers, not soldiers, but sometimes exploration meant finding people who needed help. The question was whether humanity was ready to provide that help, even if it meant making enemies of species they had never met. The Valani transmission continued to play in the background, its musical tones now sounding like a funeral song for a dying world. Commander Vextar stood in the command center of the Krek's flagship Bone Crusher, his reptilian eyes focused on the holographic display before him. The display showed the Valani system, where his forces had been systematically destroying the last remnants of another weak species. It should have been a simple operation, but something unexpected had happened. "Report," Vextar hissed, his forked tongue flicking out to taste the air. The bridge crew, all massive reptilian creatures like himself, worked nervously at their stations. They had learned to fear their commander's anger. "Sir, we detected new ships in the Valani system," reported Tactical Officer Greztor. "Unknown configuration. They appear to be protecting the remaining Valani population centers." Vextar scaled, head turned sharply toward the tactical station. In all his years of conquest, no species had ever interfered with Krek's operations. The galaxy had learned to fear the Dominion, and most civilizations either surrendered immediately or were destroyed too quickly to call for help. "Show me these ships," he commanded. The holographic display changed to show several alien vessels, orbiting the Villani homeworld. Vextar studied them carefully. They were smaller than Krek's warships, but seemed to be built differently. Where Krek's ships were designed for overwhelming firepower and intimidation, these vessels looked practical and efficient. "Have we identified the species?" Vexatar asked. Chief Science Officer Bachmore approached the command platform, carrying a data pad. Like all Kreks, he was over 8 feet tall with thick scales and powerful claws, but his role as a scientist meant he was less heavily muscled than the warriors around him. "We have analyzed their technology and traced their origin, Commander," Bachmore said, his voice nervous. "They call themselves humans, and they come from a planet called Earth in a system. Approximately 50 light-years from here." "Humans," Vexatar repeated, tasting the strange word. "What do we know about them?" Bachmore consulted his datapad. "Their technology appears to be relatively primitive, sir. They have only recently achieved faster-than-light travel. Based on their development level, they should not pose any significant threat to our operations." "Then why are they interfering?" Vexatar demanded. "No species challenges the Krek's dominion unless they have powerful allies or superior technology." "That's what concerns me, sir," Bachmore replied. "I conducted a full analysis of their home system and their planet of origin. Commander, I believe we may be dealing with something unprecedented." Vextar's eyes narrowed. "Explain." Bachmore activated his own holographic display, showing a blue and green planet surrounded by data streams. "Earth is classified as what we would call a Class Deathworlders Deathworld, sir. In all our records, we have never encountered a species that evolved on such a hostile environment." The bridge fell silent. Even among the Kreks, who prided themselves on being apex predators, the concept of a death world commanded respect. "Define death world," Vextar ordered, though he suspected he knew the answer. "Sir, most intelligent species in the galaxy evolved on what we call garden worlds. Stable climates, abundant resources, few natural disasters, relatively low gravity. The Krek's homeworld, for example, has gravity 30% lighter than Earth and weather patterns that rarely vary." Bachmore paused, clearly troubled by what he was reading. "Earth is different. Its gravity is twice what most species consider normal. Its weather systems are incredibly violent, with storms that can destroy entire regions. The planet has experienced multiple mass extinction events that wiped out most life forms, yet somehow this species survived all of them." Vextar studied the data, beginning to understand why his scientist was worried. "Continue." "Sir, humans evolved as persistence hunters. On most worlds, predators use ambush tactics or overwhelming strength. Humans literally ran their prey to death across vast distances. They can maintain physical activity for hours or even days without stopping. Their endurance capabilities are off our measurement scales." The commander felt the first stirrings of unease. The Kreks had conquered hundreds of species, but they had always chosen their targets carefully. Garden world species were easy prey because they had never faced real adversity. "What about their psychology?" Vextar asked. Bachmore's expression grew even more troubled. "Sir, their entire evolutionary history is a story of survival against impossible odds. They survived ice ages that lasted thousands of years. They lived through volcanic eruptions that blocked out their sun. They endured asteroid impacts, plagues, and constant warfare among their own species. And, Commander, every other species we have encountered develops civilization by learning to cooperate and avoid conflict. Humans developed civilization while remaining competitive and adaptable. They never lost their survival instincts." Vextar was quiet for a long moment, processing this information. The Krex Dominion had built its empire by targeting species that had grown soft on peaceful worlds. They attacked civilizations that had forgotten how to fight, species that valued art and philosophy over warfare. "Show me their military capabilities," he ordered. Backmore brought up new displays showing human ships and weapons. "Their technology is less advanced than ours, but sir, look at how they build things. Their ships are designed to take massive amounts of damage and keep functioning. Their weapons are simple but effective. Everything they create seems to expect that it will be used in hostile conditions. Are you saying they pose a threat to us?" "Sir, I'm saying we don't know. No Deathworld species has ever achieved spaceflight before. We have no data on how they might fight or what they might be capable of." Vextar stared at the human ships on his display. They looked harmless enough, small and primitive compared to Krex dreadnoughts. But something about them bothered him. They didn't look like ships built by a peaceful species. They looked like they were designed for war. "Sir," Tactical Officer Greztor interrupted, "we're receiving a transmission from the human fleet." "Put it through," Vextar commanded. The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of a human ship. Vextar got his first look at the species that dared to challenge the Krex Dominion. The human was much smaller than a Krex, but something about him made Vextar's warrior instincts take notice. The creature's eyes were focused and alert, constantly, scanning his surroundings even while speaking. His posture was relaxed, but ready, like a predator that could explode into action at any moment. "This is Admiral Choi Sung of the United Earth Defense Force," the human said in clearly translated Krex language. "You are interfering with a humanitarian evacuation. Withdraw your forces immediately or face the consequences." Vextar laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the bridge. This tiny creature was threatening the Krex Dominion. "Human, you clearly do not understand who you are dealing with. I am Commander Vexitar of the Krex Dominion. We have conquered hundreds of worlds and destroyed countless species. Leave now, or we will add your world to our list of victories." The human's expression did not change. "Commander, you clearly do not understand who you are dealing with. We are the children of Earth, and we do not abandon those who need our help. This is your final warning." The transmission ended, leaving the Krex bridge in stunned silence. No species had ever spoken to the Krex with such confidence, especially not one that was clearly outgunned and outnumbered. "Sir," Backmore said quietly, "I recommend we proceed with extreme caution. If my analysis is correct, we may be dealing with something entirely outside our experience." Vextar stared at the screen where the human had appeared. Despite himself, he had been impressed by the creature's fearlessness. But fearlessness without strength was just stupidity, and the Krex had destroyed countless brave but foolish species. "Prepare the first fleet for battle," he ordered. "I want to see what these children of Earth can do when faced with real predators." As his crew prepared for war, Vextar found himself thinking about Backmore's analysis. The humans came from a world that had tried to kill them every day for millions of years, and somehow they had not only survived, but thrived. They had developed technology, art, and civilization, while never losing their ability to fight for survival. For the first time in his long career of conquest, Commander Vexitar wondered if the Krex Dominion might have finally found an enemy that would not simply roll over and die. Captain Lee Hyun watched through the bridge windows as 3 more human ships dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the Villani homeworld. The battleship Soul's Fury, commanded by Captain Nam Hae, took position to his left. The carrier, Busan Rising, under Captain Oyuki, moved to establish a defensive pattern above the planet's north pole. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface," reported Lieutenant Park Mina. "It's the Villani. They want to talk." Lee Hyun felt his stomach tighten with nervousness. This would be humanity's first direct communication with an alien species. Everything they said and did in the next few hours could shape the future of both civilizations. "Put them through, Lieutenant," The main screen flickered and showed the interior of what looked like a building made entirely of living wood and crystal. Standing in the center was a being unlike anything humans had ever imagined. The Villani was tall and graceful, standing nearly 7 feet high but appearing delicate rather than intimidating. Its body was covered in feathers that seemed to shift. Color in the light, moving from deep blue to silver to gold. Large, intelligent eyes dominated a face that combined features of both birds and mammals in a way that was alien yet beautiful. "Greetings, beings from the void," the Villani said, its voice musical and filled with harmonics that made the words sound like singing. "I am Elder Silana of the Villani people. We thank you for hearing our call." Dr. Kim J. stepped forward, taking his role as the expedition's language specialist. "Greetings, Elder Silana. I am Dr. Kim J., and this is Captain Lee Hyun of the United Earth Defense Force. We received your distress signal and have come to help." Elder Silana's large eyes filled with what could only be described as tears, though they sparkled like liquid crystal. "You came. After so many cycles of calling into the void, someone finally came." Captain Lee Hyun moved closer to the screen. "Elder, we need to understand your situation. How many of your people are in danger? How much time do we have?" "Captain, our world holds nearly 2 billion Villani. The Krex ships continue to destroy our cities from orbit. We estimate that perhaps 200 million of our people remain scattered across the remaining safe zones. The numbers hit the human bridge crew like a physical blow. 2 billion people reduced to 200 million, and the killing was continuing." "How long have they been attacking you?" Dr. Kim J. asked. 7 solar cycles, which I believe you would call months. At first, we tried to communicate with them, to understand what we had done wrong, but they do not seem interested in communication. They simply harvest." "Harvest?" Captain Lee Hyun asked, though he was afraid he already knew the answer. "Elder." Silana's feathers dulled to a gray color, which seemed to indicate sadness or fear. "They take our people alive, Captain. We have learned that the Krex consider us a food source. They do not kill us quickly." Lieutenant Commander Shin Tae, the fleet's tactical officer, made a sound of disgust. "They're eating you?" "Yes. The Krex are what you might call carnivores, but they prefer their food to be intelligent. They find fear and suffering to enhance the taste." The human bridge crew exchanged horrified looks. This was worse than simple conquest or even genocide. This was systematic torture and consumption of an entire intelligent species. "Elder Silana," Captain Lee Hyun said carefully, "we want to help you, but we need to understand your capabilities. Do you have any weapons, any way to defend yourselves?" The Villani's head tilted in a gesture that seemed confused. "Weapons? I am not familiar with this concept." Dr. Kim J. tried a different approach. "Do you have any way to fight back against the Krex? Any technology that could stop them or hurt them?" "We do not understand. Why would we want to hurt anyone? Our ancestors learned long ago that violence only leads to more violence. We have spent thousands of years learning to live in harmony with our world and with each other." Captain Lee Hyun felt a mixture of admiration and despair. The Villani had achieved something humanity still struggled with: complete peace. But that same achievement had left them helpless against predators like the Krex. "Sir," Dr. Song Aram, the fleet's chief medical officer, stepped forward. "May I ask about your connection to your planet? Our sensors are detecting unusual energy patterns." Elder Silana's feathers brightened slightly. "Yes, Dr. Song. We Villani are connected to our world through what you might call a biological network. Our planet generates energy fields that we need to survive. Without this connection, we begin to weaken and die within days. So you can't be evacuated to other worlds?" "Not easily. We have been trying to develop technology that might allow some of us to survive away from our world, but we have not had enough time." Captain Lee Hyun realized the full scope of the problem. They couldn't simply load the Villani onto ships and Take them somewhere safe. The aliens were literally connected to their planet in a way that made evacuation nearly impossible. How many of your people could survive off-world with current technology? He asked. Perhaps a few thousand, if we could. Build enough portable energy generators. But, Captain, we could not choose who lives and who dies. We are all connected. To save a few while abandoning the many would destroy the spirits of those who survived. Sir, Lieutenant Park Mina called out urgently, I'm detecting Krek's ships entering the system. Long-range sensors show at least 50 vessels approaching. Captain, Lee Hyun turned back to Elder Silana. We'll continue this conversation later. Right now, we need to prepare for battle. Battle? Elder Silana asked. Captain, please do not let our situation cause you to commit violence. We would rather die in peace than be saved through the suffering of others. Dr. Kim Jae stared at the Vallani elder. You're asking us not to fight for you? We are asking you to remember that violence diminishes all who participate in it. If you must use force, please do so with sadness in your hearts, not joy. The transmission ended, leaving the human bridge crew in stunned silence. Sir, Commander Shinte said quietly, they're the most advanced pacifists I've ever encountered. They literally cannot conceive of fighting back, even to save their own lives. Captain Lee Hyun stared at the planet below, where 200 million gentle, artistic beings waited to die rather than compromise their principles. The Kreks were coming to finish their harvest, and the Vallani would not lift a finger to stop them. Captain Nam Hae, he called over the communication system, to the Soul's Fury. Prepare for combat. We're about to face an enemy that considers torture and cannibalism entertainment. Understood, Captain Lee. How do you want to handle this? Lee Hyun thought about Elder Silana's request to feel sadness rather than joy if they had to fight. We do this clean and quick. No unnecessary destruction, no torture, no revenge. We stop them from hurting innocent people, nothing more. Roger that. Though I have to say, sir, it's going to be hard not to feel some satisfaction when we hit back at these monsters. As the Krek's fleet approached, Captain Lee Hyun found himself thinking about the contrast between the two alien species they had encountered. The Vallani had achieved perfect peace, but left themselves defenseless. The Kreks had become perfect predators, but lost any sense of mercy or honor. Humanity, he realized, fell somewhere in between. They had never lost their ability to fight, but they had learned to fight for something greater than themselves. They could be violent when necessary, but they could also choose to protect rather than conquer. All ships, prepare for engagement, he announced. We're about to show the galaxy what happens when predators meet protectors. Dr. Song Aram was already working on plans to help the Vallani survive away from their planet. If humanity was going to save these people, they would need to solve the biological connection problem as well as the military one. On the surface of the Vallani world, Elder Silana and her people watched the approaching ships with a mixture of hope and sadness. They knew that violence was about to be committed in their name, and while they were grateful for the humans' help, they mourned the necessity of it. The stage was set for a confrontation between three very different philosophies: the Vallani's absolute pacifism, the Kreks' ruthless predation, and humanity's protective instincts. The outcome would determine not only the fate of the Vallani, but also humanity's place in a galaxy that was far more dangerous and complex than they had ever imagined. The space around Valanus Prime suddenly filled with dozens of massive ships as the Krek's first fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel. At the center of the formation, the dreadnought Bone Crusher dominated the view like a metallic mountain, floating in the void. Warlord Kethron stood on the command deck of his flagship, his massive form casting shadows across the bridge. Even among the Kreks, he was enormous, nearly 10 feet tall, with scales that bore the scars of countless battles. His reptilian eyes focused on the tactical display showing the human ships arranged defensively around the Vallani planet. Pathetic, he growled, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. 4 small ships think they can challenge the might of the Krex Dominion. Commander Vextar approached the Warlord's command platform. "Sir, should we demand their surrender before we destroy them?" Catharon's mouth opened in what passed for a Krex smile, revealing rows of razor-sharp teeth. "Yes, let's give these humans a chance to see what real power looks like. Perhaps they will provide entertainment before they die." The main communication screen activated, showing the bridge of the human flagship. Warlord Catharon got his first look at the species that dared to interfere with Krex operations. Admiral Choi Sung stood in the center of the human bridge, his hands clasped behind his back. He was smaller than any intelligent species the Krex had encountered, barely reaching 6 feet in height, with a slim build that looked fragile compared to the massive reptilian warriors surrounding Catharon. "I am Warlord Catharon of the Krex Dominion," the massive alien announced, his voice deliberately threatening. "You are trespassing in Krex territory and interfering with legitimate military operations. Surrender now, and we will grant you a quick death." Admiral Choi Sung's expression remained calm and professional. "I am Admiral Choi Sung of the United Earth Defense Force. We are conducting a humanitarian evacuation of civilian refugees. You are the ones trespassing here." Catharon laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "Humanitarian? We are not familiar with this word. Do you mean you are stealing our food?" "We mean we are protecting innocent people from murder," Admiral Choi replied evenly. "Murder?" Catharon seemed genuinely confused. "One does not murder food, human. One harvests it. The Villani exist to feed the Krex just as all lesser species exist to serve their betters." On the human bridge, Captain Lee Hyun felt his anger rising, but forced himself to remain calm. These creatures actually believed that intelligent beings were just another food source. "The Villani are people, not food," Admiral Choi said firmly. "They have rights, families, and dreams. We will not allow you to harm them." Warlord Catharon studied the human admiral with growing interest. This small creature showed no fear, even when facing overwhelming odds. It reminded him of some of the more dangerous predators from his homeworld, small but deadly when cornered. "Human, you speak of rights and dreams as if they matter. Only strength matters. Only power. Your species is weak and small. You have no right to challenge the Krex. Our size is not our strength," Admiral Choi replied. "Our strength comes from what we choose to protect." "Pretty words from a dead species," Catharon snarled. "You have 4 ships. I have 50. You are outnumbered more than 10 to 1. Surrender now, and I will make your deaths quick." Admiral Choi was quiet for a moment, and when he spoke again, his voice carried a different tone, colder and more dangerous. "Warlord, let me explain something to you. We come from a world that has been trying to kill us for millions of years. Every day of our existence has been a fight for survival. We learn to work together because alone we die. We learn to protect each other because that's how we survived." Catharon's eyes narrowed. There was something in the human's voice that made his warrior instincts take notice. "You see us as weak because we are small," Admiral Choi continued. "But we see you as weak because you can only prey on those who cannot fight back. You are not predators. You are scavengers." The insult hit the Krex bridge like a physical blow. To call a Krex warrior a scavenger was one of the worst possible insults in their culture. "You dare!" Catharon began, his voice rising with rage. "I dare!" Admiral Choi interrupted. "You want to see what real predators look like? You want to fight an enemy that will fight back? You found us. This is your chance to prove you're more than just bullies who pick on peaceful species." Commander Vexistar watched his warlord's reaction with concern. Catharon was known for his temper, and the human had just challenged everything the Krex believed about themselves. "Sir," Vextar said quietly, "perhaps we should be more cautious. Our intelligence suggests these humans may be more dangerous than they appear." Catharon whirled on his subordinate. Dangerous? They are insects. Look at them. Tiny, soft, weak. I could crush any one of them with my bare claws. Yes, sir, but— No buts, Kethron roared. I will not be lectured about caution by insects that learned to fly yesterday. All ships, attack formation. We will show these humans what happens to those who challenge the Krex dominion. On the human flagship, Admiral Choi Sung watched the Krex ships begin to move into attack positions. All ships, battle stations. This is what we came here to do. Captain Lee Hyun opened communications to the fleet. Remember, our job is to protect the Vellani evacuation sites. We don't need to destroy every Krex ship. We just need to stop them from completing their harvest. Understood, replied Captain Nam Hae from the Soul's Fury. My ship is ready for whatever they want to throw at us. Captain Oh Yuki's voice came from the carrier Busan Rising. Fighter squadrons are launched and ready. These lizards are about to learn why you don't mess with Earth's children. Commander John Woo, the fleet's reconnaissance specialist, reported from his position near the edge of the system. Sir, I'm detecting additional Krex ships approaching from hyperspace. Looks like they called for reinforcements. Admiral Choi felt a momentary chill. The odds were already terrible, and they were about to get worse. How many ships, Commander? Long-range sensors show at least 100 more vessels, sir. They'll be here within the hour. The human bridge fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. They were about to face odds of nearly 40-1 against an enemy that had been conquering other species for centuries. Sir, Dr. Kim Jae said quietly, should we consider withdrawal? We could evacuate what Vellani we can carry and— No, Admiral Choi said firmly. We didn't come this far to save a few thousand people and abandon the rest. We came to stop a genocide. Warlord, Kethron's voice boomed across the communication channel. Last chance, humans. Surrender now, or we will demonstrate why the galaxy fears the Krex. Admiral Choi looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They were scared. He could see it in their eyes, but they were also determined. These men and women had volunteered to travel farther from home than any human had ever gone, to help people they had never met against enemies they knew nothing about. Warlord Kethron, Admiral Choi said calmly, let me give you some advice. Never threaten someone's family unless you're prepared for the consequences. The Vellani are under our protection now. That makes them family. He paused, letting his words sink in. And Warlord, we protect our family. The communication channel closed, leaving both fleets facing each other across the void. On one side, the massive Krex Armada with its overwhelming firepower and centuries of military experience. On the other, 4 human ships crewed by people who had never fought in space before, but who carried within them the accumulated survival instincts of a species that had clawed its way to the top of a hostile world's food chain. Between them hung the planet Volanus Prime, where 200 million gentle beings waited to see if the galaxy's newest spacefaring species would be their salvation, or simply another group of witnesses to their extinction. The first shots of humanity's war for galactic justice were about to be fired, and neither side fully understood what they were about to unleash. The first shot of the battle came from a Krex heavy cruiser that fired on a human medical transport trying to evacuate Vellani civilians from the planet's surface. The bright beam of energy struck the small ship's shields, causing them to flare and weaken, but not break. Pilot Seo Jin was flying escort duty in her fighter Ghost of Jeju when she saw the attack. Her training kicked in immediately, and she banked her small craft toward the Krex fighter squadron that was moving to finish off the medical ship. This is Ghost Leader to all fighters, she called over the communication system. We have hostile contact, moving to intercept. The Krex pilots were confident as they approached the human medical transport. Their fighters were larger and more heavily armed than the small human craft that were racing to intercept them. The Krex had fought hundreds of space battles against dozens of species, and they had never met an enemy that could match their reflexes and spatial awareness. They were about to learn why evolution on a death world was different from evolution anywhere else in the galaxy. Seo Jin's fighter screamed through space at speeds that would have killed pilots from most other species. Her body, evolved to handle the crushing gravity and sudden environmental changes of Earth, absorbed the massive acceleration forces without even causing her to blink. The first Krex pilot to engage her was a veteran of 20 campaigns. He came at her with a standard attack pattern that had worked against every opponent he had ever faced. He expected the human to either flee or try to match his superior firepower with desperate tactics. Instead, Seo Jin did something completely unexpected. She flew directly at him, accelerating to ramming speed, then, at the last possible second, performed a maneuver that bent her fighter through a curve that should have been impossible. The Krex pilot's targeting computer couldn't track the sudden direction change. His shots went wide while Seo Jin's return fire struck his fighter's engine compartment. The Krex ship exploded in a ball of flame and debris. "What was that?" called another Krex pilot over their communication system. "I don't know," came the reply. "She moved like she was part of the ship itself." What the Krex didn't understand was that humans had evolved as persistence hunters on a world where split-second reactions meant the difference between life and death. Every human pilot had reflexes that had been honed by millions of years of surviving in an environment where everything was trying to kill them. Seo Jin led her squadron through the Krex fighters like sharks through a school of fish. The enemy pilots, despite their technological advantages, couldn't match the humans' ability to think and react in 3 dimensions while under massive physical stress. "Ghost Leader to Admiral Choi," Seo Jin reported as her fighters finished, "clearing the area around the medical transport. Hostile fighters neutralized. Medical evacuation can continue." But the real test came when the Krex brought their capital ships into the fight. The dreadnought Bone Crusher, Warlord Kethron's flagship, targeted the human battleship Soul's Fury with its main weapon, a cannon designed to crack the crust of planets. The massive beam of energy struck Captain Nam He's ship directly. On the Krex bridge, tactical officers watched their sensors with satisfaction. No ship had ever survived a direct hit from their planet cracker cannon. Then their satisfaction turned to shock and disbelief. The Soul's Fury was still there. Its shields had collapsed and its hull showed massive damage, but the ship was not. Only intact, it was still fighting. Captain Nam He's voice came over the communication system, calm and professional despite the fact that his ship had just absorbed enough energy to destroy a small moon. "This is Soul's Fury to all ships. We are still operational. Damage control teams are responding, returning fire." The human battleship's main guns opened up on the Krex dreadnought, and the Krex crew felt their massive ship shudder under the impact. The weapons weren't more powerful than Krex technology, but they were designed differently. Where most species built weapons to overwhelm shields, humans built weapons to penetrate and destroy. "How are they still alive?" Commander Vextar demanded from the Krex bridge. Chief Science Officer Backmore was studying his sensors with growing alarm. "Sir, their ship construction is unlike anything we've seen. They build for survival, not efficiency. Every system has multiple backups. Their hull is designed to absorb and distribute impact forces instead of simply resisting them." Warlord Kethron stared at the human ship that should have been debris. "What kind of species builds ships expecting them to be nearly destroyed?" "A species that evolved, expecting to be nearly destroyed every day," Backmore replied quietly. The battle escalated as more Krex ships joined the fight. But instead of the quick victory they expected, the Krex found themselves facing an enemy that seemed to thrive under conditions that would have broken other species. When a Krex boarding party tried to capture human prisoners by cutting through the hull of a damaged human cruiser, they got another shock. Colonel Park Day led the defense of his ship, and his Marines fought in conditions that should have been impossible. The Krex had cut through the hull, causing massive decompression and exposing the interior to the vacuum of space. They expected to find dead or unconscious humans, floating helplessly in the void. Instead, they found themselves facing soldiers in emergency suits who moved and fought as if they were in their natural environment. The humans had trained for combat in zero-gravity, toxic atmospheres, and extreme radiation levels because those were just normal training conditions on a death world. "This is impossible," gasped the Krex boarding party leader as human marines advanced through conditions that would have killed most other species. "They fight like they're not even affected by the environment." Colonel Park Day's voice came through his suit radio, calm and determined. "Boys, these lizards just learned why you don't board a ship full of Deathworlders. Show them what Earth's children can do." The Krex boarding party was wiped out within minutes. Dr. Yang Soon, the fleet's chief engineer, was having her own revelation as she analyzed Krex technology in real time. Her teams had managed to capture intact pieces of enemy equipment, and what they found amazed her. "Admiral," she reported to Admiral Choi Sung, "the Krex technology is more advanced than ours, but it's designed for species that evolved on garden worlds. Their shields are incredibly effective against energy weapons because that's what most civilizations use." "What's your point, Doctor?" Admiral Choi asked while watching his ships continue their desperate battle against overwhelming odds. "Sir, they're not prepared for kinetic weapons. Old-fashioned projectiles that rely on mass and velocity instead of energy. Every other species in the galaxy apparently abandoned kinetic weapons when they developed energy shields." "But we didn't?" "No, sir. We kept developing projectile weapons because on Earth sometimes you need to hit something really, really hard to stop it from eating you." Admiral Choi felt a grim smile cross his face. "Are you saying their super-advanced shields can't stop a bullet?" "I'm saying their super-advanced shields can't stop a really big, really fast bullet fired by people who have been perfecting the art of throwing sharp objects at things for millions of years." Within minutes, human ships across the fleet were modifying their weapons systems. Missiles designed to carry energy warheads were reconfigured to carry solid metal projectiles. The results were immediate and devastating. Krex ships that had seemed invulnerable suddenly found their shields useless against weapons that their designers had never considered. Human kinetic rounds punched through their defenses like they weren't even there. But the most important change in the battle came when Commander John Woo implemented what Admiral Choi called protocol persistence. Instead of fighting the Krex fleet in a traditional formation, the human ships scattered across the system and began using hit-and-run tactics that took advantage of their superior maneuverability and damage resistance. "All ships," Admiral Choi announced. "We're not trying to destroy their entire fleet. We're trying to protect the Volani evacuation. Use your speed and endurance. Make them chase you, tire them out, force them to make mistakes." It was a strategy that came naturally to humans because it was exactly how their ancestors had hunted on Earth. Persistence hunting, wearing down prey that was larger and stronger by refusing to give up, by outlasting them, by making them exhaust themselves in a chase they could never win. Captain Oyuki's carrier. Busan Rising launched wave after wave of fighters, each squadron attacking different targets before retreating to rearm and refuel. The Krex tried to pursue, but human pilots could handle G-forces and combat stress that would have killed most other species. As the battle continued, something unprecedented began to happen. The Krex, despite their overwhelming numerical advantage, began to show signs of fatigue and confusion. They were used to quick, decisive victories against enemies that broke quickly under pressure. Humans evolved on a world where persistence was the key to survival. We're just getting started. Warlord Kethron watched his tactical displays with growing frustration and something he had never felt before in combat. Uncertainty. His forces were winning, but they were paying a price no enemy had ever forced them to pay. Every human ship destroyed took at least 3 Krex vessels with it.